hoping that maybe one or two of you might have seen that video that I did earlier in the week, where I was trying to find a drive pedal out of all of my collection of drive pedals that I got available that would help me to tame sort of the brightness of my Mesa Boogie Electrodyne and give me a smooth kind of singing lead tone. And I found that what worked best was pedals where I either had an option to control like the very high trebles, or pedals where I was able to stack one drive into another. So I think what I ended up thinking was best was the Texas or the Tube Screamer side of a Sunset into a JFET boost. So that got me thinking, well, maybe there's something we could do with two sort of cheaper pedals to achieve a similar kind of effect. So I was this is just delving into my first attempt at like stacking two overdrives or drive pedals. So I've gone for two fairly cheap options, the Super Overdrive SD1 and the DS1, Boss DS1. So two pedals that you can get for about 40 quid used. And I just wanted to be on camera when I was trying this, just because I thought it might be something that's interesting for a few of us. So the intro there, I was just showing what the different, I've just got them set all at 12 o'clock at the moment. So, and I'm going into the Strymon Iridium on a Fender round setting. So like that's a 65 deluxe reverb, that's what that's supposed to sound like. So here's clean, fully clean, because that's how I like to use my amps. Then the Super Overdrive does that, so it's kind of a thick, kind of like a Tube Screamer-ish, but with a little bit more low end. And then this is the DS1. So a little bit more of a focused, even tone with the DS1. So I'll just play some quick rhythm. So kind of good for rhythm playing, the Super Overdrive because of the mid hump. Because of that mid hump, perhaps more suited to like lead playing. So I'm gonna run the Super Overdrive into the Boss DS1 and with everything set at 12 at the moment, and we'll hear what that sounds like. Then I want to swap it round and see if it sounds different, better, whatever I find, and then I want to try and tweak some of the settings to see if I can get a lead tone that I like. So it's by itself. So I think I want less distortion, but maybe the focus element of the Boss DS1 is a good thing. So I'm just going to tweak things a little bit, maybe turn the tone down a little bit and the tone up over on this side. quite a pleasing kind of tone. So you're going to get quite a bit of noise because you're obviously running two pedals into one another. I'm going to swap things around, but so just before I go back to 12 o'clock with all the settings, I just want to hear what the difference is with this pedals in this order. So there's a lot more. Wow, I say a lot more. I think there's a bit more pick attack in that, the way things are there. So that's kind of interesting. I'm going to set things to 12 o'clock again and just kind of reset and try and come up with a sound that I like this way around. So I guess one thing I am noticing is there's a bit less sustain this way around. I think that's because naturally the DS1 to me doesn't feel like it sustains as much as the Super Overdrive or like a Tube Screamer even. Although it's adding distortion to the notes, it doesn't really feel too much like it's providing me like, you know, the feel where you could get some feedback. I'm sure you could, but that's just the way it feels to me. So this way round, it feels like there's slightly less sustain on offer. Whether that's real or not, I'm not sure. However, one of the things that I do kind of like about this way around is that I'm getting more of that, the kind of high-end snappiness of the string coming through, which I mean, even with those settings, I quite like what's happening. I'm going to turn the distortion down slightly and maybe the drive up this side. So that's even more having that pronounced effect of bringing through the kind of string noise and allowing more of that kind of transparent-ish side of the DS1 to come through. If I turn the distortion down and level up. So I really like some of these tones, surprisingly. So I'm going to just take a picture of that, and what I'm going to do now is just quickly swap these back around and see if we can tell what kind of differences happen this way round. to me that's quite a pronounced difference, and not in a pleasant way. So what I'm going to do lastly now is just record a couple of solos with both of the settings that I've just found that I quite liked. So a few people have said in some of my videos about not particularly positive comments like, oh, you can't hear what that pedal sounds like when it's in the looping context, but actually I think that's a more accurate way to tell what these things are going to sound like, because generally when we play guitar, hopefully we're playing with other instruments and other music. So although there is some value to listening to sounds in isolation, that's generally not how we actually hear stuff, which is my way of justifying the way that I do things on this channel. There are lots of other channels where you can hear a super overdrive by itself, so I don't think there's any shortage of that kind of stuff. There's not necessarily loads of stuff where you can hear these kind of differences in context, which I think probably is, for me, a better way to judge whether I think I could use that pedal or not. Just a general thought, but anyway, so here's some solos. Sense to kind of try and wrap this up a little bit, but in conclusion, I'd say this is definitely something I'm going to try more of, and it seems you can get quite it's not a drastic difference, but quite a significant difference depending on where you're placing your pedals in terms of drive, stacking drives. I think this is the way round that I prefer, but I can definitely see there was a benefit to the other way around as well. I don't know, there's not any firm conclusions that I can draw at this point, but yeah, the sum of the parts is more than I'd expected. That's not a saying, is it?